The first time I heard that line, I actually stopped and replayed it. Wait, you're putting asterisk asterisk that asterisk asterisk inside me. It hit me out of nowhere. It sounded wrong. It sounded dangerous. And instantly, my curiosity woke up. I felt this strange mix of confusion and worry, like I had accidentally walked into a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. The tone wasn't angry, it was terrified. And that made it even more intense. In that moment, I could almost see the scene in my mind, even though I had nothing to look at. A voice shaking, someone stepping back, someone else responding way too casually, "It'll be over quick." That line made everything worse. It didn't calm me. If anything, it made my imagination run wild. I started thinking, what are they talking about? Why does this sound so serious? What is happening out there on that ranch? It's the kind of moment where your brain tries to fill in the blanks, and it always picks the worst possible scenario first. I leaned in, wanting to know the truth, but also a little scared of what I might hear next. The whole thing felt like a doorway into a messy situation, and I couldn't pull back. The more I replayed those words, the stronger the pull became. Something about the way the rancher spoke calm, almost bored. It clashed so hard with the fear in the other person's voice that it made the moment feel even bigger. And just like that, I needed to know what really happened. When I picture the moment right after that shocking line, I imagine the story pulling me far away from anything familiar. It takes me out to a quiet stretch of land where there's more sky than anything else. A place where every sound echoes because there's nothing to block it. That's the ranch. Wide open, dusty, peaceful in the kind of way that still makes you feel a little exposed. And into that space comes someone who doesn't belong there. Someone who isn't used to silence, or dirt roads, or the way the wind carries tiny bits of sand that sting your skin if you stand still too long. I imagine this outsider stepping out of a truck, brushing off their clothes, and looking around like they're trying to understand where exactly they've landed. Their eyes probably move from the old barn to the wooden fence, then to the animals in the distance. Everything is slow here. Everything feels older, heavier, and more real than what they're used to. And somewhere nearby, the rancher watches them, not in a creepy way, just in that calm, unreadable way people have when they've lived alone for a long time and don't get visitors often. The rancher doesn't look worried. He doesn't look excited either. He just stands there, hands resting on his belt, hat pulled low, like nothing can bother him. Meanwhile, the outsider can't stop shifting their feet. It's obvious they don't know what to do with their hands or where to keep their eyes. They're already nervous, and the rancher hasn't even said anything yet. The wind blows. A screen door creaks somewhere behind them. A cow lets out a low, tired sound. These tiny noises fill the silence, making it even thicker. If I were standing there, I know I'd feel the pressure of that silence pressing on my chest, nudging me to speak, to ask something, anything, just to break the quiet. But the outsider holds back. Maybe they don't want to look inexperienced. Maybe they don't want to sound foolish. Then the rancher finally talks. His voice is deep, slow, steady, like he speaks on his own schedule, not anyone else's. And there's something about the way he talks that makes the outsider straighten up a little, like they want to show respect. Or maybe fear. You can't really tell with people who don't show much emotion. The rancher gestures toward a small shed and says something simple but not very helpful. Something like, "Come on, we've got to take care of something real quick." He doesn't explain what. He doesn't give any details. He just turns and walks. And the outsider follows because what else would they do? They're already there. They already committed. As they walk across the dirt, the outsider notices things they didn't see from the truck. Old ropes hanging off nails. A heavy metal bucket tipped on its side. A wooden post with deep claw marks, like something strong had been tied there more than once. The outsider keeps looking at everything, imagining stories behind each object. And every story they imagine is probably worse than the last. You can almost feel their anxiety rising with every step. When they reach the shed, the rancher pushes the door open. The hinges groan, and a breath of stale, dusty air spills out. Inside, it's dim. The only light comes from cracks between the wooden boards and a single bulb that flickers like it's struggling to stay alive. The outsider hesitates, just a tiny pause, but enough for the rancher to glance back with a look that says, "Well, you coming in or not?" So they step inside. The rancher moves confidently, like he knows every inch of the shed even without looking. He walks straight toward a small table covered with tools. Tools that don't make sense to the outsider. Some are long, some are sharp. Some look like they belong in a hospital, others like they came from a toolbox meant for trucks or tractors. The outsider watches him lift something metallic. It catches the light for a second. A cold, shiny edge. Not a knife, but definitely not something you'd want pointed at you. They swallow hard. Their heart probably does a small jump, just enough to make them step back. They don't say anything yet, but their eyes are asking the question their mouth won't. The rancher, still calm as ever, brushes off the tool and turns around with it in his hand. He says something casual like, "This won't take long." He doesn't explain what the tool does. He doesn't say who or what it's for. He just stands there holding it like it's completely normal. The outsider's voice cracks slightly when they finally ask, what exactly are we doing?" The rancher looks surprised, like he didn't think it needed to be said. But instead of giving a clear answer, he just shrugs in that relaxed rancher kind of way and says, "You'll be fine. Trust me." And there it is. The sentence that sends the outsider's imagination into complete chaos. You'll be fine. People only say that right before something you definitely won't be fine about. At this point, if I were the one watching all this unfold, I'd feel every beat of the outsider's panic. The confusion, the fear, the desperate wish for just one clear explanation that never comes. The rancher steps forward, holding the tool. The outsider steps back. The rancher steps again. The outsider bumps into a wooden beam behind them. Their eyes widen. Their breath tightens, and the rancher just says, "Hold still. It'll be over quick." That's when everything clicks wrong in the outsider's mind. That's when they say the line that started this whole story. "Wait, you're putting that inside me." And the rancher just stares, confused, like he has no idea why someone would even say something like that. But he still hasn't explained a thing. And that's exactly where the tension keeps building, like a rope pulled too tight but not snapping yet. The moment the misunderstanding begins, everything feels a little too quiet. The shed seems smaller now, almost like the walls have stepped closer. The outsider's breath gets shorter, and even the dust in the air looks like it's hanging still, waiting for something to happen. I can picture the outsider's eyes fixed on that strange metal tool in the rancher's hand. They don't blink. They don't look away. Their mind is racing, but their body refuses to move. It's that kind of fear you don't expect, slow, creeping, and confusing. The kind that settles into your bones before you can stop it. The rancher doesn't notice any of this. Or maybe he does and simply doesn't care. He stands there, one hand holding the tool, the other resting on his hip, like this is just another day on the ranch. He even tilts his head slightly, as if he's waiting for the outsider to finally step forward. That tiny motion makes everything worse. When someone expects you to cooperate without explaining anything, your brain jumps straight to the worst conclusions. The outsider's voice barely makes it out. What is that for?" The rancher pauses, looks at the tool, then looks back at them and says in the most unhelpful tone possible, "Don't worry, it'll help." He doesn't say how. He doesn't say who. He doesn't even finish the sentence properly. Just those three words that do absolutely nothing to calm the situation. I imagine being in the outsider's position. Your heart pounding so loud you can feel it in your stomach. Your palms sweating even though the air is dry. And every part of you screaming that something doesn't feel right. But you still don't want to accuse the rancher of anything. You don't want to offend him. Maybe he's harmless. Maybe you're imagining things. That struggle between logic and instinct is the worst part, and the outsider is stuck right in the middle of it. The rancher lifts the tool slightly, like he's preparing to use it. The outsider flinches, takes another step back, and almost trips over a bucket behind them. The sound of the bucket rolling just makes the atmosphere heavier. Even the rancher looks irritated for a second as it rattles across the floor. He sighs, not angrily, just like someone who thinks the other person is being dramatic for no reason. "It's not that bad," he adds. "You'll barely feel a thing." That line lands like a punch. The outsider's face goes pale. They're not sure whether to run or ask more questions. The rancher takes 2 steps forward. The outsider takes 2 steps back. It becomes this awkward slow-motion dance of misunderstanding. But the rancher doesn't see fear. He sees hesitation, maybe stubbornness. He thinks the outsider is just nervous or inexperienced. He has no idea that his words sound like threats. Every sentence he says only adds fuel to the growing fire of confusion. "Just hold still," the rancher says again, a bit firmer this time. That's the moment the outsider finally speaks louder, desperation cracking through their voice. "Hold still for what? What are you doing? Why do you need that thing?" The rancher blinks. For the first time he looks slightly confused, but not enough to explain anything. He simply replies, "You'll understand in a minute." And with that he kneels down to adjust something on the floor. The outsider thinks he's preparing to use the tool, preparing to do something that will be over quick. And that single thought spirals. In their head everything becomes dramatic. Their mind doesn't show them reality, only worst-case scenarios. They imagine pain. They imagine procedures. They imagine things that shouldn't be imagined. And the rancher's silence lets that imagination grow wild. I can almost feel the outsiders' breathing speeding up. They're trapped between fear and embarrassment. Every sign their brain gives them says run, but their pride whispers, "Don't make a scene." So they stay, and staying makes everything worse. Then the rancher stands up again and holds the tool closer, examining it like a mechanic checking his wrench. "Yep," he says, "this'll do just fine." Those words echo in the outsider's head, twisting into something dark. Finally, unable to take it anymore, the outsider blurts out the first thing their terrified brain can form. "Wait, you're putting that inside me." The rancher freezes mid-step. His eyebrows slowly pull together. He looks at the tool, then at the outsider, then back at the tool again, as if trying to figure out how anyone could possibly think that. "What?" he asks, genuinely puzzled. The outsider points shakily at the device, their voice trembling. "That, you said it'll be over quick. You said don't worry. What do you mean by over quick?" "Over what?" Their words tumble out like water from a broken pipe. They can't control the panic anymore. Everything spills out. The rancher just stands there, silent, blinking slower than anyone should blink in a moment like this. His face doesn't show fear. It doesn't show anger. It only shows confusion, deep, genuine confusion. And that silence, that long pause where nothing moves, makes the misunderstanding even bigger. You can feel the tension shift, like the air itself is trying to figure out what just happened. The rancher finally opens his mouth, ready to respond. But instead of explaining, he just lets out a short breath, like he's not even sure where to start. He looks at the outsider, really looks this time, noticing the pale face, the shaking hands, the panic in their eyes. For a moment, even he can feel the chaos that's been building. But before he can clear up anything, the weight of the moment hangs there, thick and heavy, leaving everyone stuck in the most uncomfortable silence so far. And all of it, every second, is born from a single misunderstanding that no one has corrected yet. The tension doesn't rise fast. It rises slowly, the way a rope tightens one tiny inch at a time until you suddenly realize there's no slack left. The rancher and the outsider stand facing each other, both breathing the same dusty air but living in completely different realities. The outsider is convinced something terrible is about to happen. The rancher thinks he's about to get a simple job done, and neither one realizes they're speaking two different languages even while using the same words. The rancher takes a step forward, not a big one, just enough to close the distance a little. The outsider reacts instantly, shoulders lifting, feet shifting involuntarily, like their body has decided before their mind. Their instincts scream danger. Their heartbeat jumps. Their mouth goes dry. And even though the rancher moves with a calm, steady rhythm, every motion feels threatening through the outsider's eyes. The rancher raises the tool again, angling it to check the edge. "This one works best," he mutters to himself. It's a harmless comment, something someone might say while choosing a wrench or a screwdriver. But in the outsider's panic-filled mind, it sounds like a doctor choosing the least painful surgical instrument. The outsider swallows hard, and I can practically feel the thick, heavy fear settling deeper in their chest. "Look," the outsider stammers, hands half raised like they're warding off a ghost. I don't really understand what's happening here." Their voice cracks again. It shakes like the words barely hold together, but the rancher doesn't hear fear. He hears hesitation, maybe stubbornness. So he sighs, not impatiently, but with the resigned tone of someone who thinks he just needs to reassure the other person a little more. "I've done this plenty of times," the rancher says. "You'll be all right." That sentence is meant to comfort. It does the exact opposite. The outsider feels the ground tilt beneath them. Done this plenty of times. On who? For what? Why does he sound so casual about it? The questions explode inside their head like popcorn, each new one worse than the last. Their imagination stretches everything into extremes. Dim shed light, sharp tools, a man who barely explains anything, all the perfect ingredients for panic. The rancher takes another slow step, and this time the outsider actually bumps into the wall behind them. The sound is soft but sharp enough to make the rancher glance up with a slightly puzzled expression. He tilts his head, studying the outsider like he's looking at a skittish horse. The outsider's breathing grows louder, quicker. I can almost feel them pressing their fingers into the wooden boards behind them, as if gripping something solid might stop the fear rising inside. "Just stand still," the rancher says again, the worst possible sentence to say at that moment. The outsider shakes their head rapidly. "Stand still for what? What are you going to do?" Their voice isn't just nervous now, it's desperate. It has that trembling, shaky edge of someone who's ready to break into either tears or a sprint. Maybe both. But the rancher still isn't picking up on the severity. He doesn't see panic. He just sees someone who's being overly dramatic about a simple task. So he lifts the tool higher, pointing it slightly downward, and says, "It's just a quick insert. In and out." He has no clue how horrifying those words sound without context. The outsider gasps, actually gasps. Their brain practically shuts down for a second. Insert, in and out, quick. Every alarm bell they have is ringing at full volume. I can almost feel the temperature rise around them, the rush of heat across their face, the wave of pure adrenaline taking over. The rancher steps closer still. The outsider freezes. Their eyes widen, huge and glossy. I don't want that," they blurt out. "It's loud. It's sharp. It feels like it comes straight from pure instinct rather than thought." It startles even the rancher, who stops mid-step, eyebrows lifting slightly. "What?" he says again, slower this time. Not angry, not defensive, just deeply confused. But he still doesn't explain himself. Silence once again expands between them. A thick, suffocating silence that seems to vibrate with misunderstanding. The outsider keeps breathing fast, chest rising and falling, their back pressed so hard to the wall that dust from the wood falls onto their shoulders. Their eyes flick to the shed door, measuring the distance, calculating how fast they could run if they needed to. The rancher notices the glance but misinterprets it entirely. "Don't run," he says, voice steady. "You'll make it harder." Another sentence that lands like a nightmare. The outsider's jaw drops. "Harder? What are you talking about?" Their voice rises higher than before, cracking at the edges. Panic clings to every syllable. They push away from the wall, hands trembling visibly now, ready to either defend themselves or bolt out the door. The rancher takes one step back, not because he's afraid, but because he finally registers that something is genuinely off. He studies the outsider again, eyes narrowing slightly, as if trying to piece together a puzzle he didn't even know existed 5 minutes ago. But instead of clarifying anything, he simply gestures again at the tool and says, "I just need to get this in place. It's nothing personal." nothing personal. Yet somehow, to the outsider, it feels extremely personal. The outsider's voice shoots up an octave. Why won't you tell me what you're doing? Why do you keep saying things like that? Their hands are shaking so much they look like they might drop something if they were holding anything. Their breathing is fast, shallow, almost frantic. For a moment, an almost eerie quiet settles over the shed. Even the flickering bulb seems to pause, holding its blink like the whole room is waiting for the rancher to finally say the one thing that would explain everything. But he doesn't, not yet. He simply adjusts his grip on the tool and says, "It'll be done before you know it, trust me." Two simple sentences, and both of them sound absolutely terrifying in that context. The outsider's fear peaks. Their voice cracks. Their body stiffens. Their mind becomes a whirlpool of absolute confusion and dread. It's a moment so thick with tension that even as a viewer, you can feel it pressing down like a heavy blanket, making it harder to breathe. The misunderstanding isn't a spark anymore. It's a wildfire, and no one has put it out yet. Everything reaches a strange pause, the kind of silence that feels too heavy to be natural. The rancher stands there with the tool in his hand. The outsider stands pressed against the shed wall, breathing like they just sprinted across a field. Neither of them moves. It's like both are waiting for the other to explain something neither understands. And in that frozen moment, the dust in the air hangs still, the light flickers without sound, and the ranch itself seems to be holding its breath. Then the rancher finally speaks, but not in the way the outsider expects. He doesn't clarify anything, doesn't calm the panic. Instead, he says, "All right, let's get this over with. It's starting to act up." To the rancher, the sentence makes perfect sense. To the outsider, it sounds like the beginning of a horror story. The outsider's face drains of every trace of color. "It's starting to what?" they whisper, voice trembling. Their imagination fills the blank instantly. Something acting up, something inside them, something that needs to be fixed. This is how panic works. It creates a whole world in seconds. Before the outsider can spiral any deeper, a sudden loud noise erupts outside the shed. A thud, a deep, heavy sound. The outsider flinches so hard their shoulder hits the wall. The rancher barely reacts. He just glances toward the doorway and mutters, "There it goes again. See what I mean?" "See what?" the outsider gasps, their voice barely holding itself together. Instead of answering directly, the rancher finally walks toward the door. Not rushing, not worried, just moving with that slow, confident pace he's had since the beginning. The outsider watches him go, afraid to follow but more afraid to stay alone. They push themselves off the wall and take a few shaky steps after him, each one filled with hesitation. The moment they step outside, the reason behind the noise becomes clear, but only to the rancher. The outsider sees something entirely different. Near the fence, an animal is thrashing. A large animal with strong legs kicking against the wooden posts. It's trapped, panicking, struggling in a frantic burst of energy. Dust flies everywhere as it jerks its head, trying to break free. The outsider sees chaos. The rancher sees a problem he's solved 1,000 times, but the outsider doesn't know what's happening yet. All they see is a huge, angry creature throwing its weight around, and the rancher heading straight toward it with the tool. The outsider's mind leaps to the worst interpretation imaginable. Their breath catches in their chest, and the fear that had peaked inside the shed shoots into a new level of intensity. "Wait, wait!" they shout, running after him. "What are you doing?" The rancher ignores the panic in their voice. To him, the outsider is simply overreacting. He lifts the tool and kneels beside the fence, waiting for the right moment. "Gotta hurry before she hurts herself," he mutters. "She," the outsider's voice cracks again. Their brain is melting from confusion. Who is she? Why is she hurting? What does this insane-looking metal device have to do with any of this? The rancher doesn't explain. Instead, he reaches through the fence and grabs the side of the animal's halter. The animal jerks, nearly throwing him off balance. The outsider gasps loudly, convinced they're watching a life-or-death struggle. The rancher grunts, holds tight, and then, When the animal finally steadies, he brings the tool close. No, 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 don't do that to it. The outsider cries out instinctively, grabbing the rancher's shoulder. They yank him back, fear overriding every sense of logic. The rancher jerks around, shocked. "What in the world are you doing?" he asks sharply. "What are you doing?" the outsider shoots back. Their voice is shaking, but their fear has now turned into protective desperation. "Why are you using that thing on her? What is happening here?" The rancher stares at them like they've lost their mind. "I'm tagging her," he says slowly, as if speaking to someone who just woke up from a deep nap. "She got loose earlier. I need to put the tracker back in her ear so she stops wandering." Tagging. A tracker. In the ear. The outsider goes still. Absolutely still. The words settle in their mind like puzzle pieces finally falling into place. The tool, a tagging device. It'll be over quick, because tagging is fast. Just a quick insert, because it snaps into the ear. You'll be fine, because he wasn't talking to them. It's nothing personal, because it was literally for the cow. Everything the rancher said suddenly rewires itself, shifting from terrifying to normal. And that realization hits the outsider so hard they nearly stumble backward. I can almost feel the wave of embarrassment climbing from their stomach to their face, burning hot against their skin. Every moment of panic, every wild thought, every horrible picture their imagination created, it all collapses into one giant misunderstanding. The rancher notices their stunned expression, but he still doesn't understand how any confusion happened in the first place. He's just wondering why this person grabbed him like he was about to commit a crime. The outsider opens their mouth, but no words come out. Their throat feels tight, like their voice got stuck somewhere between fear and humiliation. All they manage is a small, breathless sound that barely counts as speech. The rancher raises an eyebrow. "You all right?" he asks, not unkindly, just bewildered. The outsider nods automatically, still processing everything. Their heart is slowing down, but it's doing it reluctantly, like it's not sure if it's allowed to calm yet. They glance at the tagging tool, at the cow, then at the rancher, trying to piece together how things went so spectacularly wrong in their head. The rancher, shaking off the confusion, turns back toward the cow. "Hold her still if you want to help," he says. "Otherwise step back, she'll kick." The outsider stands frozen for a moment, remembering all the things they said, all the things they assumed, all the fear that twisted them into knots. They wipe their sweaty palms on their pants and take one slow, awkward step forward, still not fully trusting the situation but knowing now, almost painfully, that the danger existed only in their imagination. Everything that felt threatening just minutes ago now reveals itself for what it always was. A simple ranch task misunderstood in the most dramatic way possible. And the story doesn't stop there, because now the outsider has to face the rancher and their own panic, without a single place to hide. The embarrassment doesn't hit the outsider all at once. It comes in slow waves, the kind that creep up your spine and warm your ears before your brain even fully admits what happened. They stand there for a moment, staring at the cow, staring at the tagging tool, and then staring at the rancher, who is already returning to the task like nothing unusual happened at all. It's almost insulting how normal he acts. Like the outsider didn't just have a complete meltdown inside a dusty shed. Like they didn't think they were about to be, well, treated like livestock. The outsider clears their throat softly, a weak attempt to break the awkwardness hanging between them. But the rancher doesn't even glance back. He's too focused on keeping the animal steady, his boots digging into the dirt as he holds the halter with practiced ease. The cow moos loudly, unimpressed by all the drama and chaos she unknowingly caused. Dust swirls around their feet with every movement, and the sun hangs low enough to cast long shadows that stretch across the fence. The outsider takes a hesitant step closer, then another. Their heart still beats a little fast, because panic leaves traces, but the fear has dissolved into something softer, something lighter. A kind of disbelief mixed with amusement that they're not ready to acknowledge yet. They finally let out a slow breath, feeling the tension loosen from their shoulders. "You, You weren't talking to me, the outsider says quietly, almost hoping the rancher won't hear it. The rancher does hear it, but he doesn't look over. He's adjusting the cow's position, muttering, "Of course I wasn't talking to you. Why would I stick a tag in your ear?" He says it like the answer is obvious, like he can't imagine how anyone could interpret the situation any differently. The outsider winces. They can practically feel their dignity crumbling into dust beside their boots. "Right," they murmur. "Yeah, that makes sense now." The rancher finally glances back, raising an eyebrow. "Now," he repeats, almost amused but still genuinely puzzled. "What did you think I meant?" This is the moment the outsider has been dreading. Because how do you even begin to explain that you thought a complete stranger on a ranch was about to perform some mysterious, painful procedure on you? They open their mouth, then close it again. They look at the ground, at the sky, at the cow, anywhere but directly at the rancher. "It's complicated," they finally manage. The rancher snorts, an actual snort, and shakes his head, turning back to the cow as if the outsider's answer only confirmed whatever assumption he's made about them. He doesn't press further, doesn't tease, doesn't ask. He just focuses on the job. "Hold this," he says suddenly, handing the outsider the end of a rope. The outsider startles but grabs it. The rope is rough, scratchy, and pulls slightly as the cow shifts her weight. They steady themselves, tightening their grip. The rancher glances over, checking their stance, then gives a quick nod of approval. "Just keep her steady. Don't let her twist too far left." It's funny how fast the shift happens, from fear to responsibility. A few minutes ago, the outsider thought they were in danger. Now they're helping with livestock like they've always belonged on a ranch. Their hands still shake a little, but it's a different kind of trembling now. The leftover adrenaline that slowly drains from the body after a scare. The rancher positions the tagging tool near the cow's ear. The outsider watches closely, fascinated despite themselves. When the tool clicks, it's a clean, sharp sound, quick and final. The cow jerks once, lets out a loud complaint, then settles. The outsider flinches harder than the cow does. "That's it?" they ask, surprised. "That's it," the rancher replies. The outsider stands there holding the rope, feeling oddly useless and weirdly proud at the same time. It's like they've been let in on a secret part of ranch life, something simple, routine, but meaningful in its own way. And despite all the earlier panic, it feels grounding, real. A moment that strips away imagination and leaves only truth. The rancher wipes his hands on his jeans and looks at the outsider again, this time with a lighter expression. Not quite a smile, but close. "You did okay," he says. "Even with whatever that was back in the shed." The outsider closes their eyes for a second, trying not to fall apart from embarrassment. They laugh weakly, rubbing the back of their neck. "Yeah, I'm not proud of that." "You sure were jumpy," the rancher adds casually. "Thought you were gonna pass out." "I thought," the outsider stops themselves. They cannot, under any circumstances, say the truth. So they shake their head instead. "Never mind." The rancher doesn't push. He simply picks up the bucket and heads toward the barn. "Come on," he says over his shoulder. "She'll settle down soon. I've got more chores to finish." The outsider hesitates at the fence line, taking one last look at the cow. The animal seems perfectly fine now, calm, almost bored, as if she hadn't just caused a complete emotional breakdown in a human. The outsider lets out a small sigh and follows the rancher, their steps slower and more thoughtful. There's a strange comfort in the rhythm of the ranch, the distant sounds of animals, the creak of old wood, the crunch of earth under boots. It makes the earlier fear feel absurd, like a joke their brain played on them without permission. But there's also something humbling about it. Something that makes them realize how much assumptions can twist things into shapes that don't exist. They walk behind the rancher in a quiet line, the air warm against their face, the smell of hay and dust settling around them. There's no rush, no tension, just the steady beat of footsteps and the subtle shift of breeze across the open land. And somewhere between the shed and the barn, the outsider finally lets themselves breathe. Really breathe. As the weight of the misunderstanding fades into something softer, something that will probably make a good story someday, even if they'll never admit the full version out loud.